Hello Booktube, it's Joshua here, and today I'm going to be giving you a little reading update. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, maybe in a month or so, I'll be covering a lot of ground in this video. The first book that I read in May was Virginia Woolf's Common Reader, and I enjoyed it a lot. I don't have the book to show you because I read it on ebook, but I'll put something up on the screen. And it was really, really delightful, actually. I can see why Steve Donoghue put it as one of his bookshelf essentials, because it has a very wide variety of subject matter. There are two parts to it, two series, and within each series there's maybe about, I don't know, 20 or so essays, but I was surprised by how many different subjects each essay was about. Sometimes Virginia Woolf would choose, rather than choosing literary subjects, she would choose historical subjects, like a priest who lived during the 18th century. All kinds of different people, and all kinds of different personalities too. So there was this constant contrast between different subjects. And one thing that I noticed, especially going through the second series, was that she ordered her essays in a very apt way. It felt like one essay was flowing into another, because in each essay there would be references to what came before and foreshadowing of what comes next. That wasn't something that I noticed when I was reading the first part of it. Maybe it just slipped by me, but when I was reading the second one, I noticed these essays are actually really interconnected. So it really benefited reading through both series from front to back, and it was really enjoyable. She may have had a wide variety of subject matter, but she always brought a very consistent manner, a very consistent method of approaching her subjects. She was very sympathetic towards them, even towards personalities who may have been negative or angry or unlikable at first. Even to those personalities, even to those people, she brought a very understanding and sympathetic voice, and I really appreciated that. It was really enjoyable to read that. At times, even, she would almost make these little portraits of her subjects. It felt almost as if I was reading an excerpt from a novel or a little biographical sketch rather than an essay. And I have actually an example here. One of her essays is about William Hazlitt, and I just thought it was extremely beautiful, and I want to share with you this quote. In his happiest moods, he looked not forwards but backwards, to the garden where he had played as a child, to the blue hills of Shropshire, and to all those landscapes which he had seen when hope was still his, and peace brooded upon him when he looked up from his painting or his book, and saw the fields and woods as if they were the outward expression of his own inner quietude. Sorry, I kind of botched that reading, but it's very poetic, it's very insightful and piercing as always, and just very novelistic, I find. It's as if she's describing a character from a novel rather than a real-life subject, and I just love that about these essays, because there are passages like this, beautiful passages, all throughout. Yeah, and so that's Virginia Woolf. The next book that I read was the Silmarillion. And I just finished it recently. I enjoyed this so much. It was a really unique reading experience. The first part especially felt biblical in a way, because it started with the creation of this mythical world, and it took a very high tone, a very sublime tone. But then it started to leave that tone and and go on to this. It would go on to describe more personal stories, personal feats of heroism, um, and it kind of just varied between that. Sometimes there would just be chapters where it describes the geography of the world, and well, I wasn't so much interested in that, but it was just this winding road of various tones, various types of storytelling, and it was just delightful. As a whole, it was just a really wonderful reading experience. And now, after reading this, I really want to go read The Lord of the Rings again. I read The Lord of the Rings 2-3 years ago, but I don't remember much of it. And I really it feels natural to read that next because well, at the end of this book, it's kind of bringing you up to that story of the Lord of the Rings. It takes you from the beginning of the world up to the events of the Lord of the Rings. So it feels like a natural progression. But I may not read the Lord of the Rings until a bit later, because I have some other books that I want to read sooner, which I will show you in due time. The third book that I read was Thomas B. Costain, his novel, The Conquering Family, which is the first novel out of 4 in his Plantagenet series, which is called the Pageant of England. I thought this book was really delightful. I believe it was my very first history book that I've read, and I was not disappointed. I think that I'm very slowly swinging over to the side of liking nonfiction more than fiction. Of course, I like both a lot, but the more and more I read nonfiction, the more it really delights me. I think there might be an especial pleasure in knowing that what I'm reading has a more direct relevance to the real world. Of course, fiction does have relevance to the real world, but I think that relevance is in a more roundabout way. So yeah, I don't have the book to show you, because I read it on Kindle as well, but it was just, it was really wonderful. It's a popular history, so it's not like most history textbooks that you'll see where it's a very dry tone and very scholarly. It was kind of like reading a novel, to be honest. Thomas B. Costain really, you can tell, and he states it in his preface, that his main goal is to entertain the reader, which is just wonderful to hear. And I was definitely entertained and fascinated. I was utterly fascinated by the subject. The book took me from the year 1066 of the Norman invasion all the way up to the signing of the Magna Carta, the signing of the Magna Carta in the early 13th century. And I have a little quote here to share with you, just because I found it to be particularly piercing. And here it is. The picture next day was not so impressive. Sorry, I should explain the background. This is describing the Third Crusade, which King Richard goes on. He shows up at this town called Acre, which is under siege right now, and he's showing up to help other Christian crusaders like the Emperor of Germany and the King of France. And when he shows up, when he shows up, everyone's celebrating because they're like, yay, we have help. But then it says this, but then it goes into this passage. The picture next day was not so impressive. Acre had been surrounded by vineyards and small fruit farms, an orderly belt of green. Now, after nearly 3 years of siege, the terrain resembled a place visited by earthquake or swept by fire. The litter, the filth, the desolation that 3 years of careless soldiering can create are beyond description. And I did a Google search, and this book was published in 1949. So it's hard not to think that when Costain was writing this passage, that he wasn't thinking of World War II, of no man's land and all that. And it's hard not to think about the wars that are going on today. This passage especially seems endlessly relevant. Yeah, so I really enjoyed all of the reads this May. Now I'm going to talk about my pile of possibilities. The first one is Dune. I watched Steve Donoghue's videos about Dune in June, and I'm aware that there are other hosts who are hosting it, but I can't remember who exactly is hosting it. But I watched Steve Donoghue's Dune primers, and they were really delightful videos. If you're looking to read Dune and you feel intimidated, I highly recommend those videos because they make it very digestible. But I have read this book once before, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but I really don't remember anything from it. I think when I was reading it, I don't think I even understood what was happening part of the time. So I'm gonna really enjoy going back to this and seeing what I can pull from it, and seeing how the reading experience differs from last time. I haven't started yet, but I'm going to right now because we're in June today. And yeah, that's Dune. Next is Plato. I'm just going to be reading Plato's Symposium because Justin at Triumphal Reads, he's doing a little philosophy read along, and well, I'm pretty much a newbie to philosophy, but I really want to get into it. So I'm gonna read Plato's Symposium. I've already started. I'm about 15 pages in, and it's really good so far. I'm actually really enjoying it. So far, I love the fact that it's not just a philosophical treatise, but it actually has it's actually a crafted piece of work. It's Plato sets up this dramatic framework within which philosophy gets discussed, and I love that. I really enjoy that. And this is translated by W.H.D. Rouse, and I'm enjoying the translation so far. I think it's well written. Those are the two books that I'm going to be reading most immediately. I also want to read Runaway Horses by Yukio Mishima. A very good friend of mine lent me this book. He's a Mishima mega fan, so he's been pushing for me to read more of Mishima. I've read the first novel in this tetralogy, the name of which I can't remember, but this is the second novel in his famous tetralogy. The tetralogy's name is The Sea of Fertility. So I'll probably try to get into this sometime at the end of June. The very last book, or books in this case, that I want to show you is a biography. It is a 4-part biography of Bernard Shaw. I don't know if you can read that actually, but it's Bernard Shaw by Michael Holroyd, and it's very big, as you can see. I calculated the amount of pages that are in all 4 volumes, and it's about like 1,400 pages long. But I've heard a fair bit about Bernard Shaw, but I don't really know much about him. I don't know much fact about him. I've never read any of his plays or any other of his works. So this will be very interesting to discover who Bernard Shaw is. And I've only read one biography in the past, and that was James Merrill's biography by Langdon Hammer. That was delightful. And so I want to read more biography. As I said, I'm really getting into nonfiction now. So yeah, but that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about what I've been reading or what I want to read. And I hope you guys all have a really great day. Goodbye.